Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support. The Walker Arts Center is a proud supporter of Native Roots Radio. Visit Diani Whitehawk, Love Language, an exhibition that celebrates the Sichangu Lakota artist, centered on connection between one another, past and present, earth and sky, and traditions of Lakota abstraction. Love Language is a sweeping survey of Whitehawk's work. The Walker is always free on Thursday nights, and citizens and members of tribal nations always get free admission. More info at walkerart.org.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Rebuilding Together Minnesota provides critical home repairs and safety modifications at no cost to low-income homeowners, with a focus on supporting BIPOC communities across Minnesota, because everyone deserves a safe place to live. If repairs feel out of reach, help is available. Their work helps older adults stay independent, support families, and strengthens neighborhoods. Apply during the application window through March 31st. Visit rtmn.org and select Apply for Help, or call 651-776-4273. Rebuilding Together Minnesota, where neighbors help neighbors. Aho, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Rain-snow mix becomes all snow tonight with a low of 28. Then Friday, snow showers with a temperature around 14. Pick up your elegant box of French macarons from Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth, conveniently located off Highway 169 and 36th Avenue. Check out the store in person or place your online order at nicolettesmacarons.com.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut. He didn't cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagita, all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local, national, Native news and events. And as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Hey, we have our friend Tom Weber on, and Tom, we haven't been on in a while since your book came out, and that's been a couple of years, and I appreciate you stopping in. And I wanted to talk to you about a couple things. And one of them is, how is your family holding up through all of this? Because not only are you're working full time, you're supporting your wife and your children and the community. So how are you guys holding up?
Well, I mean, I appreciate the question. And for those who don't know, the coolest thing about me is that I'm married to Peggy Flanagan, who is our lieutenant governor here in Minnesota, also running for the United States Senate this year in 2026 on the ballot. But the fact that Peggy is the lieutenant governor or a candidate for Senate is actually, I don't think that the answer is any different than it is, Robert, for you or for anyone else that you know who is living in the Twin Cities right now. It is hard and it's heavy. And we know in these few months that there have been National Guard deployed to various cities and ICE deployed to various cities. They've kind of been hopping around. So I think folks in each of those communities remember what it was like when it was most acute in those cities. But I think every place is different. And I think there are some versions of it that are more intense here than even have been in other places. I don't know that from experience. That's just a feeling I have. And so it's very heavy. And we can't forget, a woman has been killed. Renee Good
Right.
should be alive today. And so, my short answer is that it's very heavy. We are, trying our best to get through day by day. There are forever signs of hope. There are forever little moments where you know that there still is humanity, and there really are. I really sincerely feel, and I think you do too, Robert, that more people, way more people than not, do not really agree with what's going on. They know that ICE's uber presence here in the Twin Cities and in Minnesota is not making us safer, and for Renee Good is making it much, much less safer, and for all of us. So that's kind of my initial thoughts here now, and it's just heavy. But you keep looking for the moments that keep you going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am so honored to have you on too. As you were talking, you were a former NPR host, not only a reporter but a host. And I remember seeing you at the fair. And this is a sidebar. You were talking about the wolf hunt, and there was, and supporting us natives that are against the wolf hunt. Now, I always remember that. And that was, I love the state fair as you do too.
Absolutely. It's and as you know, Robert, one of the ironies upon all ironies that's happening this week is that ICE, there are a lot of indiscriminate moments where they don't have a judicial warrant signed by a judge. They don't really have reason to pull someone over. They don't have reason. They don't have legality in many cases, and in, I think, basically all cases, to knock people's doors in, right? So like we're seeing that happen, and we know they're targeting Black and brown people, immigrants. But guess who's getting caught up in that, Robert? It's Native Americans. Native
Right.
American people have also been grabbed, which is, a whole other show about the irony of immigration agents taking Native Americans and saying, you shouldn't be here. And,
Right.
I'll let you add your commentary to that, Robert. One of the places Peggy was this week was, a coffee shop I think a lot of your viewers will know in Minneapolis on Franklin Ave, Powwow Grounds, because they showed up there. And, I think in that one case, the community came together. They were able to de-escalate, but it's just traumatizing.
Yeah.
Now you go home and you think, well, that could just happen tomorrow and again too. So that's part of what's so hard too. And, Peggy is a leader in the Native community. She's running to become the first Native woman ever elected to the United States Senate. That's never happened. And so, there's a lot of people in the community who rightly, are looking to her to say, what can you do to help as well? And it's hard because there aren't easy answers sometimes either.
Well, I like to talk about, and I don't think it's controversial at all, but there were no, there were no borders when before we were colonized, and our relatives to the south are native to this continent and indigenous to the continent, and I like to bring that up because those people are being snatched. Our Somali relatives, our even our like our Hmong community on the east side of St. Paul.
That's right. Hmong in the Latino community, obviously Hispanic. Peggy and I go to a church that has a lot of immigrants from Central and South America, and the church is emptier when we go to mass. People are just scared, and that's a big thing. It's you think about the help that people need, and it's one thing to say, I'm going to support a food shelf, which you absolutely should do, and you should donate to a food shelf. But if someone's scared to come out of their house to go get that food, well, then you need a whole nother level, a whole extra set of volunteers to take that food then to people's individual houses. So there's a lot of organizing that is happening, and a lot of good work, I think, that people are doing in earnest in support of our neighbors. And, in some ways, Robert, it's an awful moment, but there's just a lot of things happening now that I think will be tools that we can use as organizers, even after this has gone away, or at least tampered down a little bit. But again, that's just me trying to find at least one moment of hope here and there. But yeah, it's a heavy time. And Robert, I think you also know folks who aren't in the Twin Cities. They're sending love, they're sending support.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know unless you're here, right? And that's
Right.
not. I'm not saying that to be a braggart or anything like that, but there's just you just walk around feeling 10 pounds heavier with all of it.
Well, and not only that, Tom, and we got like a couple minutes here, and then I really want to talk about February 4th in our next segment,
Sure,
or
that's
February
right.
3rd.
Yeah.
But we've gone through such a horrible year, and I know you're a Minnesotan,
Mhm.
and I know your wife's friends and colleagues and people like that. It's just been horrific here in the shooting of children and in school, and
That's right.
and then we had, prior to that, George Floyd, where we had all these imposters come in and raise heck.
And the thing you're also alluding to there was the killing of Peggy's good friend, Melissa Hortman.
Yes.
Mark Hortman, her husband, who was an elected official, right? And you have to remember that the person who did that was going to elected officials' homes wearing a mask, dressed
Mhm.
as law enforcement. And, I know there's a lot of concern in different communities that while there is fear that ICE may come in, right? The fact that they're wearing masks in some ways is a trigger to the way that Melissa and Mark were killed, but it's also a fear that maybe there's people just playing ICE agents. They put a
Right.
mask on, they're playing dress up, but then they go in and they can be rough with people. And that's a hard thing to track. But, even if it's not fully confirmed, I know that's a fear that people have. And so, it's hard, but, these are the
Yeah.
moments we're trying to be in community too.
Hey, I'm here with Tom Weber. What is your title? First husband of the lieutenant governor? Is that-
Well, she's as the wife of the lieutenant governor, I go with second gentleman. That's what Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, used when she was vice president.
That's right. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio. The Walker Art Center is a proud supporter of Native Roots Radio, rooted in Lakota aesthetics of geometry, color, and pattern. Deani Whitehawk's abstractions are rich in meaning, honoring generations of Native artists. Explore her wide-ranging practice, including vivid beading paintings, sculptures, and video installations in Deani Whitehawk's love language. The Walker is always free on Thursday nights, and citizens and members of tribal nations always get free admission. Plan your visit and get tickets at walkerart.org.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Rebuilding Together Minnesota provides critical home repairs and safety modifications at no cost to low-income homeowners, with a focus on supporting BIPOC communities across Minnesota, because everyone deserves a safe place to live. If repairs feel out of reach, help is available. Their work helps older adults stay independent, support families, and strengthens neighborhoods. Apply during the application window through March 31st. Visit rtmn.org and select Apply for Help, or call 651-776-4273. Rebuilding Together Minnesota, where neighbors help neighbors. The Walker Art Center is a proud supporter of Native Roots Radio. Visit Deani Whitehawk, Love Language, an exhibition that celebrates the Sichangu Lakota artist, centered on connection between one another, past and present, earth and sky, and traditions of Lakota abstraction. Love Language is a sweeping survey of Whitehawk's work. The Walker is always free on Thursday nights, and citizens and members of tribal nations always get free admission. More info at walkerart.org.
Anine, I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are here with Tom Weber, and I just thought we'd play that bumper. We play another bumper all the time, too, and that's a point I want to talk about right now and really hammer this home and talk about how important caucuses are and where we're at with that, especially, I mean, regardless of what's going on now, but especially with what's going on now, how important it is for us to have a leadership that sees eye to eye to us. And let's talk about February 3rd.
February 3rd is an important date for Peggy's campaign for U.S. Senate. Again, as I mentioned in our last segment, she's running to be she would become the first Native American woman ever elected to the United States Senate. And we have an opponent on the DFL side. Peggy is running as a DFLer. For those of you outside Minnesota, that's what we call Democrats in Minnesota. And there's a fellow DFLer running, Congresswoman Angie Craig. And I really think the reason February 3rd is so important is because there's a real clear difference in this race. And one of them has to do with what we were just talking about, immigration. Congresswoman Craig was the only Democrat from Minnesota this summer in June to vote in favor of a resolution that praised ICE and the work that it's doing. And earlier in the year, the first bill when Trump 2 took office in 2025, the very first bill was an immigration bill that took away due process for our immigrant neighbors. And again, Congresswoman Craig voted for that. And so I really think there's a clear difference here. And what February 3rd is the start of a process to get Peggy what's called the DFL endorsement. And the reason this is so important is because there's a lot of money in politics. Peggy's not taking any corporate PAC money. Angie Craig, her DFL opponent, is. Chevron, the big oil company, just did a $600,000 ad buy for Angie Craig. So big oil has weighed in on who it wants to be senator. And the caucus system, the convention, the endorsement process is a place where big money and dark money really doesn't have much of a hold, because this is neighbors showing up. This is people going to a local school or a church in your neighborhood, in your precinct, in your Senate district, and saying, I want to be part of this process. And by the end of what will launch on February 3rd is a process that ends at the end of May, where you have this endorsement. And if Peggy gets the DFL endorsement, it is just that. It is the DFL party saying, you have a primary coming up in August, and you're going to have to vote between two Democrats. The DFL party is saying, this is the person you should vote for because that's who we've endorsed. So what happens on February 3rd is step one, and it's called the precinct caucuses. What's going to happen is that folks in your community, your neighbors, people who live on your block, 3 blocks over, across town, they will meet in a central location, and each of you will be in a different room. This happens in schools a lot, so it's a different classroom. Each classroom is your own precinct. So you find your precinct room, and you'll notice when you walk in that everyone in that room, you're going to notice some people who you see when you're out for a walk, because these are folks who live really close to you. You all vote at the same place, right? And that is a day we want people to go and be a part of precinct caucuses, because it starts this 3-step process towards getting her that endorsement. And on that night, you sit in that room and you raise your hand and say, I want to be a delegate to the next convention, to the organizing unit convention. That can be a Senate district convention, that can be a county convention, because then you'll go to that convention and you'll run to be a state delegate. So there's a little bit of electioneering happening on precinct caucus night, but the important thing is that we get people to be delegates, and you start on February 3rd so that we can keep enough people going so that come end of May, when we have the state DFL convention, there'll be a vote to say, who should we endorse for U.S. Senate? And Peggy can win that vote. The easiest way to get into this, Robert, is to go to peggyflanagan.com. And across the top, you have a bunch of buttons that are, your options. And one of them just says caucus, C-A-U-C-U-S, caucus. Click on caucus and fill out that form that says, I'm committing to caucus for Peggy. And that way we'll have your email. We can send you notes and updates on how to do this. Robert, we're recording this a little early, but I believe this is going to air starting on Thursday. So for folks listening to this, what you can also do is go to the Secretary of State's website and look up where you go to caucus, right? It might not be the place where you vote. It may not be a place where you've been to a community meeting before. So you have to find out where to caucus, and we'll have all these links on peggyflanagan.com as well. And then you go that night, bring a friend, start showing up at 6:30. The programming starts at 7. They'll be doing other things, but the real key is to stand up and say, I want to be a delegate to the next convention. That keeps you going on the process to getting Peggy endorsed. How's that for a quick overview?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And Wendy and I always caucus, and we vote at a different place. We a Jewish synagogue, and then our caucus is at Highland High School in St. Paul. So I agree with you, and it's really an interesting thing, and everyone should join in, and also everyone should support the lieutenant governor. And I didn't want to throw any mud, but I'm glad you did, because every time I get a text from Angie Craig's people for donations, I always respond with, well, she supported ICE. And so, I mean, I'm glad we're talking about that, because there is plain differences, and we can't, her candidacy, meaning Angie Craig, reminds me of an old native verse where the left wing and the right wing are from the same bird, and she's definitely from the same bird, Angie Craig. And it's so refreshing to have, and the country is really shifting to more, and especially the Twin Cities, shifting more to being progressive.
Yeah. Well, and it's and it's not just about, I definitely wanted to point out some things that show some differences between Peggy and Angie Craig. That's what you do in any election. But there are also, I think, many good reasons why Peggy, you should vote for her. One of them is that Peggy. She's been in community for more than 20 years. She's been an organizer. She was on the school board in Minneapolis. She headed the Children's Defense Fund, state representative, lieutenant governor, and she has traveled the state. She's won statewide elections twice before. But on the policy side, it's time for Medicare for all. Peggy supports that. I mean, these costs for healthcare, especially now that Republicans have let these Affordable Care Act waivers expire, it's astronomical for folks. It's just not possible. And Medicare for all, actually, and it's not free, but it will end up saving people so much money. That's important. They haven't raised the federal minimum wage in more than 16 years. It's still $7.25 at the federal level. In Minnesota, it's higher than that, because Peggy, 15 years ago, co-chaired the campaign to raise the wage. And the key with that is that we didn't just raise the minimum wage in Minnesota. She fought tooth and nail to make sure that it went up every year to index for inflation. So just 2 weeks ago, on January 1st, people who earn the minimum wage in Minnesota got another raise, as they've been getting every year. Peggy also co-chaired the campaign to pass paid family leave in Minnesota. So you're not at the whims of which company you work for, whether you'll get paid leave. Now you will just get paid leave from your job. And Peggy started that campaign 10 years ago, and it finally passed. So Peggy has been in these fights for a long time. She stays with them until it passes. And January 1st, 2 weeks ago, paid family leave went into Minnesota. And frankly, we've had so much, bad happening in Minnesota with ICE, and with what happened with the killing of Renee Good, and all of the images that you see. It's been a dark 2 weeks, but two important things happened on January 1st that are getting overshadowed, rightly so. But those are both things that Peggy has been a fighter for, and that's what we should want in Washington as well.
Absolutely. And that's what we need. We need a fighter. We need someone to really step up. And she's young, and she's got the energy, and she's got the know-how. And again, I really like when you bring up and remind everyone, she is in community. I see her everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's part of what we call a people-powered campaign. Again, corporations have enough power and enough say in Washington. So she's not taking any corporate PAC money. Now, does that make it more complicated? Does it make it harder to raise money? Yeah. So when you go to Peggy Flanagan and you click caucus and you fill out that form, do that. If you can go back to peggyflanagan.com and click the other button, one of the other buttons that says donate, and send $5, $10, or $50, that will help keep this people powered. Because at the end of the day, Peggy's goal is to be accountable to us as Minnesotans, to the people of Minnesota, and not the corporations who have had their way so much in Washington.
Well, here's a question I have, because I know I've been invited to a fundraiser from Dr. Stately at the bookstore. What the heck's it? Yes, thank you. And people can do that. What's the parameters? Because I've talked to a restaurant here in St. Paul about doing the exact same thing. Do we wait until after the 3rd, or can we start rolling that out right away?
Well, we can start rolling out the way. What I could do, Robert, is we can get in touch with who to be in touch with on the campaign, and then you can share that with your network and things like that, and to get the word out. But the other thing is that people should feel empowered. People should feel empowered to go online, use your social media presence to say, this is why I'm voting for Peggy. If you're an artist, if you have creative talents, design the next great, hope poster, like from the Obama 08 campaign, right? Like feel like this is your campaign, take initiative, and put out in your most creative way possible the ways that you think Peggy and why Peggy should be our next United States Senator. And the best way to do that is February 3rd, precinct caucuses. That gets us started. Again, that's the start of a process, not the end of a process. But if you're as dedicated to Peggy for Senate as I am, you're all in, and you want to see there make it all the way to the state convention so we can get her that endorsement.
Well, thank you, Tom Weber, for being on. I really, really appreciate this. And we'll talk more. This has been a great conversation, and I'm sure our audience is really up for it. So this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Hey, we'll be right back with Anna Negrete and MMIR and talking about what's happening there. This is Native Roots. The Walker Arts Center is a proud supporter of Native Roots Radio. Visit Diani Whitehawk, Love Language, an exhibition that celebrates the Sichangu Lakota artist, centered on connection between one another, past and present, earth and sky, and traditions of Lakota abstraction. Love Language is a sweeping survey of Whitehawk's work. The Walker is always free on Thursday nights, and citizens and members of tribal nations always get free admission. More info at walkerart.org. Aho, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together. Rebuilding Together Minnesota provides critical home repairs and safety modifications at no cost to low-income homeowners, with a focus on supporting BIPOC communities across Minnesota, because everyone deserves a safe place to live. If repairs feel out of reach, help is available. Their work helps older adults stay independent, support families, and strengthens neighborhoods. Apply during the application window through March 31st. Visit rtmn.org and select Apply for Help, or call 651-776-4273. Rebuilding Together Minnesota, where neighbors help neighbors.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
The Walker Arts Center is a proud supporter of Native Roots Radio. Visit Diani Whitehawk, Love Language, an exhibition that celebrates the Sichangu Lakota artist, centered on connection between one another, past and present, earth and sky, and traditions of Lakota abstraction. Love Language is a sweeping survey of Whitehawk's work. The Walker is always free on Thursday nights, and citizens and members of tribal nations always get free admission. More info at walkerart.org.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been telling you about my friends at Snap Construction, who are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior construction company in the metro. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all their reviews online. Winter is the most cost-effective time of the year to complete your construction project. A majority of Minnesotans choose to have their work completed on their home in the summer when they should be enjoying the weather. As a result, the demand for labor in the summer is much higher. The most cost-effective way to improve or restore your home is in the winter due to the lower demand. Right now, Snap Construction is offering an additional 30% off of labor to the AM 950 listeners on your next construction project between now and the end of February. Call 612-333-SNAP and mention AM 950 for an additional 30% off. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. Don't wait to get a free estimate by calling 612-333-SNAP or find them online at snapconstruction.com. Financing options available.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Rain snow mix becomes all snow tonight with a low of 28, then Friday snow showers with a temperature around 14. Pick up your elegant box of French macarons from Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth, conveniently located off Highway 169 and 36th Avenue. Check out the store in person or place your online order at nicolettesmacarons.com.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Here we are with Anna Negrete, and Anna, please introduce yourself and all the great work you do for our community. And I see you everywhere, and it's so good to see you to check in. Welcome to Native Roots Radio.
Thanks for having me. I'm Anna Negrete. I'm the State of Minnesota's Missing Murdered Indigenous Relatives Office Community Planner. So like you said, I have been quite busy and out in the community. Actually took some time off to be in community with everything that's going around on here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so I was thankful to see you out as well over the weekend. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we talk about, and I want to talk to you about this right away because of what the work you do and have been doing for quite a few years. You know, how do you take care of yourself? How do you, and so our audience would like to know. And so maybe they can mirror what you do, or maybe you need to take better care of yourself. So where are you at with that, and how are you doing?
Yeah, self-care is super important. And to be honest, Robert, I haven't been the best at that. I took some time off over the holidays for the first time in a while. And so I think that's one part of the thing, is recognizing too that we can't pour from cups that are empty. And so just making sure that we do take time off. I know people go missing and are murdered, and all the stuff is happening outside of normal business hours. Unfortunately, MMIR is not a crisis team or unit. There's 5 of us, and we have families, and so just trying to balance that, but also realizing that people are in crisis and need support, and so we do our best to show up. So I mean, some of the things for me, I am in a better habit now, carrying medicines with me, making sure that I smudge when I need to, but also to be honest, I'm in therapy, and that's important to process, because I don't want to burden my family or trauma dump on what I go through, what we go through, what families go through, and how that impacts. And so just processing too. And I have a great support system. So I'm blessed in that.
Well, it's amazing, and I think everyone should be in therapy. And I was hoping to hear more like drinking water and staying hydrated, but thanks for getting personal. That's we're good friends, and now you're good friends to all our listeners. Oh,
yeah, they drink water too. I mean, that's important. Water's life, and I keep my cup my water cup full. Although sometimes, we get busy too, but yeah, of course that's important. But to be honest, that's what I need to do for myself, and just to be functional in the work that I do. I have to tap into some of those other resources as well, and just lean on what new things, therapy is new for me. And so the medicines are easier for me to do, and something I could do when I can, as much as I can. So it's a good combination of both.
Yeah, definitely. So also we talk about MMIR when you're on and when the chairperson's on too and what's happening. But I can't, and I wanted you to come on because one, I saw you, and two, I can't get beyond the way people are getting snatched, our relatives, and as you know, Native Roots Radio knows that our relatives of the South are our relatives, and so that and Native Americans are being snatched up. So this is like traumatizing times 2 for your work and our community.
Yeah, and for me personally, my mom became a U.S. citizen when I was in high school. She was born in Mexico, and that's my indigenous roots that I talk about. It, we're Otomi from Central Mexico. I have my Honka family here, with the Dakota people. But so it impacts double for the first time ever. Like, I think it even says on your social security card, or what you get when you get one, don't carry it with you. And now suddenly I'm carrying that. I'm carrying my passport. We're telling relatives carry tribal IDs. I know tribes are pushing out extra opportunities to get tribal IDs and to have those on hand. And so, man, it's scary knowing that they're taking people and then asking questions later. That's hard to see and hard to witness, and kind of sorting out what media comes out. So it's good to be here where you're in community and you see those things as well, Robert. I just can't overemphasize the importance of just the awareness and hearing for folks that are boots on the ground. Shout out to the Indigenous Protectors Movement and Shields who are out there patrolling. I saw a lot of folks out doing outreach and just making sure folks have whistles and alarms and are staying safe and helping, because we're unfortunately right now they're targeting Indigenous folks south of the imaginary border that we hold, and so it's stressful times right now.
Yeah, it is, and I'm glad you're coming on too, because we need to talk about this. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm telling you, my guests do, like yourself, and we really need to blast out what's really happening. We can't get side. We have places like CBS that are now Trump, now Fox Light. We have so it's important, so important for us to get the word out there of really what's going on. And with the organization that you're with, that the MMIR state office, we just need to say that we're still working, and you're still working, and things are happening still. We're out there and we're resilient.
Yeah, we sure are. I mean, I know that right now a lot of us within the office are stressed, and we're hearing from community they're afraid. It's not lost on us that they're targeting, that they were all in on the quarter targeting Indigenous organizations, and I guess I don't know what the premise is of why specifically that, other than we look similar, and so. But yeah, we're still keeping it moving, but at the same time, recognizing that we do need to adapt and we need to change how we're doing things, at least for the time being. Making sure we had our staff check-in meeting this past week, talking about making sure that when we're in community, that we're together, we're sharing out where we're at. So I know that there's flyer distributions. Folks are still going missing and still being murdered, and that's still happening. But also just making sure that we're looking out for staff and each other, just to make sure, like, hey, here, I'm going to be out in community. This is where I'm going to be at. And just over communicating almost to make sure that we're safe and that we're traveling in groups. Unfortunately, that's where we have to be. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that, because over communicating, I heard that term a couple days ago at a press conference, and you just said that. Let's talk a little bit about that. We really do need to, and because we're all related here on Turtle Island, they're taking I mean, they're even going after our Hmong relatives, for sure our Somali relatives, but our Mexican relatives are native.
And that's one of the first thing when I how I got really connected with Indigenous roots is going through trauma and realizing I need to rely on ceremony to recover from a trauma. And yet we are related. The ceremonies are similar, and we are Indigenous people. And as far as over communicating, I guess that's not my favorite term, but it is something that I know I'm more conscious of. Making sure I don't normally say to my kids, hey, I'm going to go out and keep an eye on my location because, this is where I'm going to be in Minneapolis over the next couple of days. So things like that are just a little bit out of the norm to make sure that folks have eyes on me. Reiterating, I'm never going to leave my kids. I'm never going to choose to step away from this work voluntarily. If I'm missing, something's wrong. I'm never going to disappear. I'm never going to voluntarily not be in contact with my kids, my community, my family. Like, that's not me. And so just kind of learning some of those norms that where people are at, we need to stay in contact. We need to talk about safety plans. We need to make sure that we're sharing locations on secure things. Unfortunately, I'm hearing about, more so that, I don't want to get too much into conspiracy things, but there's ways to kind of monitor what we're saying. So making sure that those, that we're not sharing publicly necessarily where we're at outside of trusted folks, but that's people know where we're at. So that's important.
Well, I don't think it's a conspiracy thing, and I think it's a real thing. And I've seen postings on how they're tracking our phones and how that's how they're finding our relatives and knocking down doors. And a lot of our relatives that they're doing that to are not the term that they like to use, illegal, but it's such a colonized verb. We got a minute left here in this segment, and I just want to say you were reading my mind, because the first time I heard that quote about a mother telling their children that I would not leave you was State Representative Heather Keeler at a Capitol thing, and I was going to ask you about that. So you're reading my mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that just, we all go through different times and, different things that are hardships, but really saying to family, I'm never going to choose to be gone. I know that we struggle and our community has specific vulnerabilities, around mental health. We have been raised in a culture of silence. And then we want to say that silence isn't voluntary or wasn't something to keep secrets, but outside of to keep us safe. We didn't talk about what was going on in our families because we wanted to preserve our families and that family structure. And so, that is the truth. And I know that when I'm out in searches and talking to folks, I tell people, and I've heard from others, I'm never going to go voluntarily missing. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to just stop. So
exactly. Well, hey, Anna Negrete, community planner for MMIR, and our friend. We're going to take a quick break. This is Native Roots Radio presents. Rebuilding Together Minnesota provides critical home repairs and safety modifications at no cost to low-income homeowners, with a focus on supporting BIPOC communities across Minnesota, because everyone deserves a safe place to live. If repairs feel out of reach, help is available. Their work helps older adults stay independent, support families, and strengthens neighborhoods. Apply during the application window through March 31st. Visit rtmn.org and select Apply for Help, or call 651-776-4273. Rebuilding Together Minnesota, where neighbors help neighbors.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Oh, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together. The Walker Arts Center is a proud supporter of Native Roots Radio, rooted in Lakota aesthetics of geometry, color, and pattern. Deani Whitehawk's abstractions are rich in meaning, honoring generations of Native artists. Explore her wide-ranging practice, including vivid beading paintings, sculptures, and video installations in Deani Whitehawk's love language. The Walker is always free on Thursday nights, and citizens and members of tribal nations always get free admission. Plan your visit and get tickets at walkerart.org.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are with our friend Anna Negrete, a community planner for missing and murdered Indigenous relatives state office. And thank you so much for coming on. And I'd really, we talk about a lot of things over the years, you and I, but let's talk about safety protocol. And I know that's kind of MMIR's jam. And can we talk to our audience about that? And again, welcome back and thanks for spending time with us.
Absolutely. I think part of the safety talk has to start with prevention, and we talk a little bit about that. I know when I was growing up, we kind of had girl code, that we stayed together and that we didn't leave friends behind. Those are conversations I have with my own children. If you are going somewhere, you with a friend, you stay with them. They don't go off with somebody else that might have just met. They're not getting into cars where, that they don't know. And we're just really looking out for each other. I know we're not just talking about that right now, Robert, just because of the state of what's going on here in Minnesota, that we're not just talking about being safe in general. There's some specific things that are happening in our state that we want to, address. And again, talking about sharing your location. Mm-hmm. I still remember my home phone number from when I was a kid, and, with cell phones now, sometimes I have to double check and make sure I'm given the right number, or I don't know my kids' numbers all by heart, but taking a few extra minutes, making sure that you're memorizing a few key numbers for contacts in case of emergency. I know that while I was out in community, I saw folks writing on their hands. Yeah. Kind of those, here's the reporting numbers, here's the attorney numbers, and kind of getting familiar with what some of those resources are. So doing things like that, if you're out in community, and that's a reality of the situation that we're in, is that we need to do some of those planning. Again, sharing your location, talking about letting your family know, even letting children and talking to them in a way that, we do want to be trauma informed, and we're not trying to, but we need to make sure our kids are safe. So what do we do if somebody comes to the door, understanding that we don't open the door for people that we don't know, that we're, in these times that we're asking for the right things, that we're staying calm. I know it's scary and it's hard to do. I can't imagine what some of our relatives are going to that don't have, all their paperwork in line. That fear factor, because like I said, even being born here, my mom is from Mexico, and so I know I have that look. And so just understanding and letting I talk to my kids about that kind of stuff, and what their rights are. Don't open the door. You don't have to answer questions. You can ask the question, am I free to leave if somebody is stopping you? It's kind of knowing just kind of the status of those kind of things. I mean, those are some of the things that come to mind, and this by no means is legal advice. I want to be clear on that, but we are just talking about safety and talking as relatives amongst each other, that those are some of the things. Some of the other things that we've done in community and that I love seeing in community is kind of this new alert and alarm system. There's whistles. When you hear those whistles, when you hear those horn honks, be looking out for one another. We are relatives, and we need to make sure we're strong. We're so much stronger together than we are divided, and not falling into that. They're the Indigenous folks from this place or that place, we're stronger together. And so we look out for each other. And I'm so thankful that I've been accepted, just people do look out for me. People are watching out for me. They're not asking for my tribal ID. We don't have that in Mexico. But we're just looking out for each other. We're relatives, and I feel that. And so grateful for that aspect of who we are as Indigenous people, that we see that we define family in that way.
Right, exactly. And I agree 100%. One of the things that really strikes me too is when you were talking about safety. uh, I see these people trying to trick people and questioning them by saying, "Let me in." Well, you can't. I mean, this is like from watching TV shows from the 60s and 70s for me is
Right.
like, no, you can't come in without a warrant.
Yeah, yeah. And that's hard too. I mean, especially if to understand what's real and what's not, what do those warrants look like? What's the difference between now I think they're saying, they need a judicial warrant, and what
Yeah.
does it look like? And knowing that before we open the door, the guidance that I've heard is before we're opening the door, asking for that, slide it under the door, or we're
Yeah.
figuring some other way to lay eyes on that before we're trusting that that's there. So it's these times are so different and so unnerving and stressful. So
Yeah, definitely. So we need to like stay hydrated. We need to talk to trusted or members of the family and trusted people about where we're going in a trusted way. And it's difficult because I have a few things that I got going on. I'm an oversharer, but I don't need to overshare. And I think one of the things that we need to do is use our cameras and maybe not go live, have this information of what's going on in your neighborhood or with your community or with your family. Um, and while you're doing that, stay safe too, because obviously uh, these ICE people are not following any kind of law or any kind of sense in our community, especially with the murder of a white woman in this city.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that there's different apps where you can kind of track and see where folks are at, and so just doing that in a mindful way, and just making sure that, again, that sharing of where we're at, looking out for and not turning the other way. We don't have the luxury to not be worried about this, and we are responsible for each other. We don't get a chance to it's hard especially when we're in public service roles. We don't get to really opt out of whether this impacts our lives or not. And so I'm just
Right.
thankful again that we're talking about this and that you invited me on. This has been a stressful time, I know, for both of our families. And so I just appreciate you having space for us to talk about this and share information. And so relatives know that they're not alone in the struggle. We're here for each other and we care, and we're trying to do the best we can to be good relatives.
Yeah, and I just want to echo, and I appreciate that too, because we have to get the word out there, and we can't back down in a sense of give up. We have to stay with the truth and be resistant and persistent and resist all this stuff, because that's what they want us to do, is to back down and give up, and we're not going to do that. And I just got to give Minnesota a shout out, showing up nationally when I'm seeing people talking about Minnesota in a good way, or how we're fighting against this.
Yeah, it's hard to understand sometimes the impact of the little things that we do, how much that matters. And people are asking, do protests matter? Is that really
Mhm.
going to change? I know what's not going to change anything is if we sat home and were quiet and we decided to not do anything and not gather and not raise awareness. I know that's not going to change. So is protest the answer? Peaceful protests, is that the route to go? I'm not sure if that's where the change happens, but I know sitting still and doing nothing is not an option for me. I know it's not an option for you. I saw you out there as well. Like, we have to do something. We have to keep this movement going and say this isn't okay.
Yeah, well, it's been reported many times that we only need 3.5% of the community of the country to fight this and change it immediately. So I think we're pretty close to that number, and we got to keep pushing forward. Anna Negrete, thank you. Peeny Gigi, thank you so much for being on and speaking your truth. And please take care. In your office of MMIR, please take care. I know you guys are good people, and you have to be in these times. I really appreciate you.
Thank you again for having us. I also want to highlight too that we got February 14th coming up at the American Indian Center, and that you'll see some new billboards in community this week. Should be going up in Minneapolis, so be on the lookout for those. And thanks again for having us.
Perfect. We'll have you on again and talk about that just before the 14th. Really appreciate it, Anna Negrete. Hey, we'll see everybody tomorrow. It's Native Roots Radio.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis Air. AIR stands for